So I'm Trudy Quay from Bethlehem Neighbors for Peace. We've been doing these for about 23 years now. We've covered almost any controversial topic you can imagine with varying degrees of success. And I'm so glad you're all here tonight because this is a really important topic. And I don't think 6 months ago any of us had any idea that we would be dealing with this. So we've got a really good program with two really outstanding speakers. Our first speaker is Oliver Holmes, and he's going to talk about what is an AI data center and why some of us think they're a bad idea. And then when he finishes, then we've got Silberman-Gorn. He's going to talk about organizing and activism, where we stand with the moratorium, and where we maybe want to go from here. So, a couple other things. Please hold your questions till the end. There's index cards over there that you can fill out so that you have the questions in writing, okay? We probably won't take questions from the floor, so please go fill out an index card. Also, we have to be out of this room at exactly 8:45, all right? And so if you're having a really important conversation, you're going to have to take it outside. Right? It's a beautiful night, so you can stand out there in the parking lot, okay? And nobody can change hands. Nobody can change hands. Okay, and we have a sign-up sheet in the back, and if you want additional information, Oliver and Isaac will provide information based on whatever comes up tonight, and we can send it to you, all right? So, I think that's it. Oliver, all set?
Well, welcome everybody, and thank you for coming on this Sorry. I have a hearing disability as well, so that's why I asked you all to write it down, because when we get to there, it's easier for me to read it and then group them together and provide answers that are appropriate for that particular set of questions. All right? Thank you for that. Who am I that has this kind of background? I've spent probably 20 years at RPI as their facilities engineer, designer, constructor, working on data centers, their computer center, working on clean room facilities, looking at understanding all the energy that's required. And RPI as a campus has 4.5 million square feet, and it only uses 15 megawatts of power, even with all of that. Now that may not make sense to you if you don't know engineering stuff. But as we go through this tonight, I'll give you a sense of scale and what that means. So, as we start, this is kind of a typical hyperscale data center. It's actually small by current standards. So, what are data centers? There is a wide range of definitions. They've evolved from very small things, little mainframe computers 40 years ago, to what we have today. And the first one is really called enterprise. They're privately owned, operated by a single organization, like RPI, like Albany Med, like College of St. Rose, which is no longer with us, to support their own internal operations and storage, data storage. They're located on site, typically, and they may include this crypto class thing that has become part of the problem with data centers. They're their own specific focus, where they're in there doing this cryptocurrency, Bitcoin mining, running millions of computations per millisecond to kind of make sure that their money is secure. We've then moved into what's called cloud data centers, which are more national in nature. Amazon, Microsoft, and them are the originators of those. They're on demand. Third-party providers, as I've just said, it's where your emails, your photos, and all that stuff that you want to put in the cloud. So if you have over 5 gig of photos on your smartphone these days and you subscribe to Google for another $2.99 or whatever it is a month, that's revenue to them. There's probably 100 million people doing that at $2.99 a month. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of data. And then lately, the hyperscale data. This is a result of this move towards what we're going to talk about, artificial intelligence. And what we're finding is these things are what we call scalable, meaning they start small and they just get bigger and bigger. They just multiply the number of buildings they have on their site. Hundreds of acres of land being used to construct these and operate them. The interesting thing is the tech giants, Meta, Able, and them, they don't own them. They're hiring people, contractors, developers, to go out, find the land, hundreds of agricultural acres or whatever they can get, to build these things where there's enough power and enough water that we'll spend some more time talking about. These data are extremely efficient. The major company doing this with these chips these days is called NVIDIA, and if you ever play in the stock market, you'll know that NVIDIA is just skyrocketed. They're selling hundreds of billions of dollars worth of these chips. If you want to be a hyperscale developer right now and you want to buy these chips, you have to wait 9 months to get them. That's how fast this market is growing. What we're finding is they're building them and they don't even have a customer. They're willing to spend $1 billion to build a data center. They don't have a customer. So that's this kind of exponential growth that we're looking at. So what is artificial intelligence? Well, it's not the human brain. It's the capability of computer systems to simulate human intelligence. Simulate, key word. It's learning, reasoning, problem solving, and perception, performing tasks that traditionally required human intervention. We're not going to be needed, maybe. This generative AI is the latest thing using this data, algorithms, and these neural networks. Analyze the patterns and predictions and use it in the stock market, everywhere you can think about it. Enhancing productivity across all economic sectors. Productivity, meaning replacing humans. These productivity gains, and what that means, positions in many businesses are being eliminated. Now this has already started in some, it started in Wall Street, it started in the banking industry. They're just replacing people with generative AI systems that are across the country or across the planet these days. The major players, all the AI companies, Google, Amazon Cloud. Amazon makes their money not from the stuff that you buy from them, if you choose to do so. They make it from cloud services. Billions of dollars in revenue. Meta, Facebook, advertising. Microsoft Azure is another. Apple, Oracle, and then there's some other minor players as well in this marketplace. But who's bankrolling it? Is it you? Is it your retirement funds? Maybe. But the big players are BlackRock, which is $1 trillion kind of a private equity investment company, the Carlyle Group, and there's a whole group of others who have just jumped into the pool to spend billions of dollars to build AI centers. The growth and the trends. It's unprecedented. There are 919 planned projects which will add 292,000 and change megawatts, which is 293 gigawatts of power. I'll give you a sense of scale and a little bit about what that means. The world shifts. Things are so big, hundreds of acres. The one in Utah that there's a billionaire from, wherever that thing, he's got hundreds of thousands of acres of land. He wants to drain Salt Lake. That's how much water they want to use there. And many of them are moving to the south in the Midwest where the aquifers still have some water. The opposition is growing. This concerns over power use is a big deal. Water use has become the latest big thing, and land use are the increasing concerns. With some states and some local municipalities Now exploring construction moratoriums. Many of you may be aware that the New York State legislature is debating tonight whether to pass a one-year moratorium. It was supposed to be 3. I think they negotiated the 1 so they could get a deal. Hopefully we'll hear if that happens. And local municipalities. Right here in the town of Bethlehem, they are now discussing local law that would give a 1-year moratorium, because there are concerns about where you could put one in Bethlehem. There are locations where you could buy 100 acres, be near a major substation, be near a generating facility, and maybe some water, although Bethlehem doesn't have enough. So it's changing and it's rapidly. The proximity, we're near them. In case you don't think so, there's actually 11 of them in Albany. Who knew that? 11 data centers right now. They're small, anywhere from 1 to 5 megawatts. But they're out there. They're storing your data. They're working with the hospitals, other companies that may be in proximity to the Albany capital region. The geographics. With this massive expansion underway, if you've driven down through the I-81 corridor in Virginia, you may see what looks like warehouses. And I originally thought, yeah, they're warehouses for Amazon. They're data centers. They don't have any windows. There's very few people actually working in them. And this thing I just found out yesterday, so I added this slide. The Defense Department, or whatever they want to call themselves these days, is now planning to build hyperscale data centers, Texas, North Carolina, Utah, California, Arizona, and Georgia, using those private equity firms like BlackRock, who they're cutting deals with, as partners. Building them on military installations avoids public scrutiny of build-outs. They don't have to tell us what they're doing. And I'd like to know what they're doing with these hyperscale centers. Is it military planning? Is it surveillance? Nobody has a clue, and they're not talking about it. But they're planning to make these investments. And these private equity firms are looking at this, and they're kind of just drooling over the opportunity to make billions of dollars from the government. Oops. Yeah, and the last is there's a 3 gigawatt. That's 3,000 megawatts. Being planned near Fort Bliss, Texas, consume more electricity than all of El Paso's 460,000 customers. Now, El Paso is kind of a hot climate zone. They use a lot of air conditioning, so if you can imagine how much power El Paso uses, and they're using that much. So, I like pictures. I can give you all kinds of numbers, but I like pictures. Guess who's number 1? U.S. China, way down here. The argument is we have to build these hyperscale centers because we have to beat China. We have 10 times as many as they do. 10 times. And growing. I have to change the slide thing here. This website is incredibly information-driven. You can put your mouse over it, and it will tell you what's going on, where they plan to build them. The dark colors, the really dark colors, are the ones that really get 328 operational data centers.
Microphone.
Oh, sorry. 328 in Virginia, 203 planned, for a total of 531 for something the size of Virginia. Texas, the big state of Texas, they're going to have 741. Now that's before I think this Defense Department deal came about. California's another big one. How about New York? Want to look at New York? Kind of closer to home. Gee, we only have 19 big ones, not little ones, big ones. 35 more planned. That number's probably changed in the last week since I gathered this. Because I have another slide.
What are the ones in New York?
Pardon?
We're the big ones in New York.
I've got a map.
Okay.
Isaac's gonna get to that.
We'll get there.
So let me go to New York. I have another slide. And this one, this came from the Syracuse newspapers. There was a reporter out there several weeks ago who started working on this. The scale of the size of the circle tells you the size of the power requirements. And when you look, you can imagine that here we are up near the Canadian border, and the reason for that is lots of hydroelectric power up there that's being sold now to all the local utilities within the state of New York. Municipal electric corporations, like in Placid, for example, they get electricity for like 5 cents a kilowatt hour. You should move there if you're worried about your electric price. 5 cents versus 20 because it's municipally owned. And then I saw this kind of dots. I said, what's that? And I went to what's this website for New York State called the New York Independent System Operator, where they list all of the data center developers who've put their hand in the pot and said, I want this much power. And that's when I discovered that this Kenwood Commons that we're going to talk about is asking for an interconnection of 180 megawatts. I'll tell you more about that shortly. So, what's the problem with this? What's wrong with having a data center? The only place to store your photos, store your emails, take care of your money, do your banking, send greeting cards to your loved ones across the country. Yeah, that's all good, but that's such an insignificant piece. There's a big problem brewing with the hyperscales. Obviously, electric power is a big one. It's a huge problem. There is so much capacity that they're asking for that they could just sort of drain the swamp. And they don't care. It's all about making billions of dollars for them in these data centers. And it's a lot more than storing your photos. This grid interconnection is where they're going to plug into the grid to get all this power. The emergency power is another issue. I'll spend some more time on that one. Electric rates. Electric rates in the U.S. have been rising, partly due to this requirement of having more power. And the deal is, these electric companies like National Grid or the ones in Massachusetts or any of the ones around the country, they charge for two things. And you may not understand how this all works, but I'm going to give you this simple view. In your residential home, apartment, wherever you may live, you get an electric bill. And in there it'll tell you use so many kilowatt hours in the last 30 days approximately, right? And it's broken into two pieces. It's called supply and the service. One of them is the actual kilowatt hour electrons that you get and you use when you plug something in. The other is the charge to deliver the power to you. So it's broken out because of deregulation that happened 20 years ago across the country. But there's another charge, and this one you don't pay yet. Middle of the afternoon here today, it got to 87 degrees or so here in Albany. A lot of air conditioning systems got turned on full blast at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Anybody who used in a larger building, a university, a hospital, at that time in the afternoon is going to have a thing called demand. And that demand is all across the grid. So everybody wants these electrons. You want them, I want them. And so do they. They charge you for that peak demand, that instantaneous 15-minute window of an entire month for them is the demand charge. And it's around $20 a kilowatt. So if you use 500 kilowatts, it's $1,000 just for the switch for 15 minutes. That's the third piece. And that's what they're paying. Everybody else is, the big, anybody other than residential, commercial customers, industrial customers, they're all using that. Water requirements are absolutely enormous. And what we're finding, where do they use it? Well, they've got to air condition these buildings, right? There's people in them, not too many, but they're there. But these data centers, these racks of computer chips that are in there are running incredibly hot. They're running around 120 degrees Fahrenheit. Could you imagine being in that space at 120 degrees Fahrenheit? They have to cool it. What they used to do was blow air, cold air across them. That's what we did at RPI, blow a lot of cold air. It works, but you got to have an electric chiller making all that cold air. And the other side of this is, it's like with your refrigerator. The box is cold, right? Keeps your beverages, your food frozen cold. But it blows all this heat out the bottom. Same thing happens with these data centers, but think of the scale of it. With the millions of BTUs of this thermal energy thing that they have to throw away. And they use water to accomplish that. And they use these large cooling towers. There are noise levels associated with these data centers. People it's driving them crazy if they're too close because everything's running 24/7. The emergency generators, they have to run at least once a month. They have to test them. They're diesel, they're gas turbines. Construction impacts, the typical stuff, noise, lighting, site dispersion, stormwater. Air pollution, emergency generators, the diesel ones, they have to run. They emit pollutants, right? Another one that comes up with all this air conditioning, they have to use all these refrigerants in these mammoth air conditioning systems. Those can contribute to ozone depletion in the atmosphere if it gets released inadvertently. There are supply chain issues. The demand for the electrical equipment is so huge right now. You're waiting 9 months to get transformers, and you're probably buying them from South Korea, if you can get them. People, again, are ordering this stuff from these development companies, not knowing whether they're really going to get a data center because they have to get in the line. E-waste. This is much more than recycling your laptop. These chips that NVIDIA and the other manufacturers are making, they're being outdated in 3 years. So newer, faster versions coming out that require even more power. The 3 years is up. What are they going to do with them? Where's the waste basket? That's where they're going. Land development issues, clearly. When you look what's happening around the country, they're buying up thousands of acres of agricultural land, and that's requiring zoning changes. And in some cases, we don't get a say. Climate change, all this electric power from fossil fuels is clearly increasing. Job losses. This AI models is replacing workers in software development. My son works in software. He's now using Claude, which is one of the generative AI tools. He just wrote a program in Claude that normally took his people that work for him on his team 3 weeks to accomplish something. He wrote it in 8 hours. They've now used it, and the work that was going to take them 3 weeks to get done took them 2 days. What's going to happen in that industry? The AI bubble, finally. With all this billions of dollars being invested, and nobody's sure who's going to be first, who's going to get left out, whether you get the power, whether you get the water, whether you get the land, whether you get the rezoning. There's a potential for a crash. There's some people that are seriously talking about it. I have mixed emotions, but I don't know what's going to happen. But it's clearly something to pay attention to. So, how big is too big? Here's a gigawatt center. Over a third of the energy used in a gigawatt center is used for cooling, which means rejecting heat to the outside environment. Those are cooling towers sitting on top. Inside the building, these are these kind of server racks that I was talking about. Those things there are cooking at 120 degrees Fahrenheit. You can imagine how much air you would have to blow. So what they're now doing is developing new chips, and they actually have these cold plates inserted in between each one of these with these chill water lines running into the units to cool them with cold water because they get so hot. You have a laptop. It has a battery. So if the power goes out and you're working on something, you don't lose what you're working on, right? You get to save it. It's saved for you. Power comes back on, you plug it back in, charge up your battery. The same thing is true in data centers. They need backup power, lots of it. 100, 200, 500, a gigawatt. They can either use natural gas or fuel oil as backup generation capacity. And they have to run it once a month or more often to make sure it works, because the last thing they can afford is to have a gigawatt's worth of data disappear. What are your customers going to say? They're not going to be happy. They're paying a lot of money for this. They're noisy, there's emissions. The red line that's showing up on here is the number of emergency generators for that particular facility. This is a picture of Mr. Musk's facility down in Memphis, Tennessee, where he illegally installed something like 23 gas turbines because he couldn't get enough power from the grid. This is an infrared photograph showing how many of them are running. That's the exhaust flume from the gas turbines. Battery backup, like I said, with these laptops, you're going to have it. Well, it turns out now with these UPS systems, which we used at RPI, we had, like your car battery, we had a room full of these things to make sure that power didn't go out for the data center. And so actually what happens is the power comes in, it actually goes to the batteries. Sorry, it goes to the batteries, and then the batteries have an inverter, it turns it back into AC voltage, and that all goes to the data systems. So they never see a blink, not one blink. Well, now what we're doing is changing the battery systems. We're now using lithium-ion batteries. Now, lithium-ion can be safe. We all have them. You have them in your phones. You have them everywhere. But there have been fires. And the interesting thing is, I'm seeing a lot of pushback with these battery storage systems in upstate New York, where the local communities don't want them because of a fire that happened somewhere. These things are relatively safe, but they're not zero. We're going to use them in these data centers, and we're using them in capacities that are much larger than the battery storage systems we're seeing in local communities. 15 to 45 megawatt hours of battery storage. Twice the size of this room, or 3 times the size of this room just for the batteries. Where's your power coming from? The grid, right? We just plug it in. It's like your home. Whatever you want, you plug it in and it works. Right? It works, sort of. But when they do that, there's not much left. The current administration, and I'm not talking the local or the state here, is attempting to eliminate wind power and photovoltaic power just when we absolutely need to do more. Much more. What's happening with some of these data sites is they can't get enough power, like Mr. Musk thing in Memphis. So they're just installing all these gas turbine units in what's called behind the meter. It's like if you have an emergency generator in your house, it's behind the meter. Or if you have a photovoltaic system, it's behind the meter. That's what they're doing. That way they don't have to rely on too much power from the grid. They make their own. Well, that's kind of nice. You make your own, you're not messing with the grid. But what are the impacts? Carbon emissions, noise emissions, natural gas use increases at the time we need to use less. Emergency generators, same thing. Increase in emissions, noise emissions, pollution. You see any solar panels there? I don't. Look at that huge roof. They could put solar panels up there, but they're not doing it. They're not doing it. New York State generation's mix. Maybe you know this. Where do we get our power from? Solar, wind, natural gas is a big piece of it. Some nuclear up there along the border, hydroelectric. A lot of it we buy a lot from Canada. They've actually just built, maybe you've seen this, they built a huge underground power line going from Canada all the way to Brooklyn. It's almost 2 gigawatts of power to help New York City use renewable energy. But nobody gets to tap that line on the way down. It goes directly to New York City. They need it longer. Electric infrastructure. When you start looking at some of these data sites, this is the land requirement for a 115 kilovolt substation. That's how much land you have to have so that nobody gets electrocuted at 115,000 volts. It's pretty good size. Inside the building, those are the UPS systems, the switchgear. They can't buy this stuff fast enough anymore. They have to get it from Europe. We can't make it fast enough here. And that's, that's one wall of the building. Where's the water coming from? This is the big new question. Excuse me, existing water systems? Sure, right? City of Albany, they've got a huge reservoir out there at the Elko. Billions of gallons of water in it. That's enough, isn't it? Yeah, I know. I'm about done. Thank you. They may not have enough. We certainly wouldn't have enough in Bethlehem to do that. Who gets it? Who gets the priority? And on top of that, they want to buy this much water and they want it cheaper than we pay for it. Yeah, really. They want to pay less. Underground water aquifers. This is happening out in the Midwest right now. They are draining these aquifers so that the land is subsiding. If you've seen it, pictures of California where the land is sunk 3 or 4 feet already from agriculture with the blue stuff of water in the aquifer there. Air conditioning. More of those cooling towers, that's what they look like. That's all water being evaporated in the air to rejecting heat from the data center. Land development. Local zoning changes being requested because it was agricultural land, not industrial, not a tech park. They're asking municipalities when they go into these rural areas to sign non-disclosure agreements so they can't tell you what they're doing. How crazy is that? Significant offers to landowners. There are a couple of, there was one in Tennessee, I forgot how many $1 million they offered her for her family farm. She told them no. Amazing. Millions of dollars. Could have just walked away, said no, I want to farm it. How much do we need? Lots. There's just, it goes on and on. This is Memphis. Mr. Musk's Colossus data center, the first piece. 1 million gallons of drinking water. This is potable drinking water treated so you can drink it. Safe to drink. They're using it for cooling. And then, evaporating it. They promised to build an $80 million water recycling plant and then they walked away from it. Said, nah, we don't need it. Lots of environmental concerns down there. Massive demands. The setting up these unauthorized generators. No EPA permits. He put them on trailers. He said they're just temporary. I don't need a permit. He's a great guy. Energy demand for the Memphis area could reach 2 gigawatts, which is 2,000 megawatts, which is enough to power 1 million homes. Also that we can have generative AI in one location. Just one. So let's talk local. Want to talk local for about 2 minutes? Kenwood Commons. Kenwood Commons.
Disgusting word.
It's beautiful.
Okay.
It's beautiful, isn't it? Sitting there on the hillside of the former Doan Stewart convent property. Well, architects do some really interesting things. I've been guilty of that kind of stuff. Like that. Not like that. Scroll back here. Couple more slides, we'll be done. That's Kenwood. The developer is describing it as an edge data center. I previously called it hyperscale, and then, well, he wants to call it an edge. Edge meaning this. It's small. I mean, but again, all the ones in Albany, there's 11 of them, they only use something like 12 megawatts or whatever it is. This one wants to use 180, but he's calling it a small edge center, just serving locals. Yet, at the same time, if he wants to use evaporative cooling systems, meaning his cooling towers, he's going to consume somewhere between 1 to 5 million gallons a day, depending on how they come to do that. That's the water use of 90,000 people. 90,000, that's all of Albany. All of Albany. And just so that you have this fast fact you can take home with you, the average use as you as a water consumer is 110 gallons a person per day. 110 gallons. That's not very much. Kenwood, it requires rezoning. It's zoned for not a tech center or industrial, residential under development only at the current time. The data center footprint is 7 acres on their description, which is 509,000 square feet and 3 buildings, 2 existing and 1 new. The grid power, they say, is going to come from existing local gas turbine plants. There's enough. Well, those plants have some surplus capacity at certain times of the year, but not all the time. So what happens then? The center is proposed in their documents as 10 megawatts. But in fact, their infrastructure request is for 180. There's the site that it sits on. There's 75 acres there. Not all of it is very usable because there are some wetlands and it's a hillside. This I managed to get from National Grid. This actually shows the electrical infrastructure and the high voltage lines that are in the vicinity of the Don Stewart site. So they don't have to go very far to get a lot of power. They just have to build a huge substation for it. So I'm done. I've thrown a lot at you. And I know it's overwhelming. It even is to me, and I've been working on this stuff for years. But if you, we'll entertain some questions.
But if anybody has a question, could you write it down and we'll
Yeah.
answer the questions after Isaac finishes his presentation? Who wants
I think we got a question over here.
I thought 3 actually. I went down 3.
You need another card?
Yes.
Anybody else want a card?
We're going to let Isaac go through his slides, and then we will do into a real question section.
Any more questions?
Just gives you an opportunity to fill out, and then we'll kind of take a look at it, categorize them a little bit, and allow us to kind of answer them appropriately. So with that, I want to introduce Isaac, and let me set it.
Hey everybody, how are y'all doing tonight? Good. Thank you for being here. Do I have any clever, ooh, I get a, all right, look at that. Okay. Probably good. All right, hi, my name's Isaac. I live in Troy. I've been politically organizing 15 years on and off. That's why you should listen to me. I'm with a small organization called Frack Action. It's a staff of 3.5. I'm the half. I do other work as well. And today we're gonna, my focus is gonna be the political context and also statewide and city of Albany. So right now, Oliver talked a little bit about this. 39 proposed data centers in New York. All of them, if they were all approved tomorrow, it would literally double New York's electrical usage. As a state, we use 11 gigawatts. That amount of power is hard to conceptualize. It's hard to put numbers to this. That's all of us. We turn on our air conditioners everywhere in the state, from Buffalo to Long Island. We're using about 11 gigawatts. all of these proposed data centers would be equivalent to that. I found a much lower resolution map than Oliver did. That's the proposed center, couple massive proposals in western New York and the North Country as well. So right now, the political context. Who here knows what's happening tonight? Awesome, okay, a handful. This is the last day of the legislative session in New York. And I'm giving, this is updated as I've got. I learned more information from Mark, who was probably in Albany riding around earlier today. There was a proposed 3-year moratorium bill on all data centers in New York State. That got bargained down to a 1-year moratorium. My impression is that it has passed the New York State Assembly and it's expected to pass the Senate. That is a general positive. I am going to give a little bit more optimism than I usually do, which is great. So the process of passing a bill, so both New York State Assembly and Senate need to pass identical versions of the bill, and then the governor needs to sign it into law. So hypothetically, this moratorium bill goes through. The governor has until the end of the year to sign it into law. Make sense? Okay, awesome. Our governor has not been an ally on climate and the environment. I've been in this world professionally about 15 years. I have not watched more decisions that have been harmful to our state come down in a 6-month period ever in my career. So she's approved pipelines, crypto mining facilities. So just for the record, this 1.5 gigawatts of renewables, we fought like heck. We have been fighting like heck to get more renewables online as quickly as possible. If y'all haven't noticed, cost of fossil fuels has gone up in the last couple months because we're dependent on a global system. We're dependent on leaders of all over the world who make their own decisions, and our own leader who is making his own decisions. So she cut 1/10 of New York's power from our public renewables plan in New York, and should we allow data centers, it's going to double our electrical usage in the state. I worked really hard on a bill called the All Electric Buildings Act. It would basically take fossil fuels out of new construction. She has significantly weakened our climate law. And the other thing too, so we're at a moment where it would be beneficial for us to build electrical lines to take power from some of these renewable developments, and she has nixed a lot of these transmission lines. So these are the words from, I think it's important to hear from the horse's mouth, as they say. Governor Hochul is a politician, not a horse. I want to make sure our ratepayers are never affected by data centers. I believe the data centers, if they do come to our state, need to provide their own energy source. She wants to have her cake and eat it too. There is no imaginable set of circumstances that should these facilities go through, that all of our rates don't go up. And that's a guarantee, that is a promise. It cannot happen any other way. National Grid is an international corporation who here is paying less on their utility bill. No one, because they went through a process called a rate case to raise all of our rates 20% because they can. The second part of this quote, they need to provide their own energy source. She has been fighting us tooth and nail to build out renewables, to build things in the direction that we feel that we need to go. We have real concerns that is not actually a possibility. So I'm going to talk a little bit, we're getting down now to Kenwood specifically. This is an issue of environmental racism. This site has been chosen. It is a low-income community that has dealt with harms, specifically the bomb trains a couple of years ago. I don't know if folks remember that. This is oil that's being brought by rail, transferred to ship, and shipped overseas. Because this is an international energy system that we're a part of. There was a whole bunch of national attention around this. So on this Kenwood proposal, the person who is going to make the decision is Mayor Dorsey Appiers. Her planning board is going to give a thumbs up or thumbs down, and city council will have to interact. They're going to have to change the zoning. Right now, there is no category for data centers in their zoning. This is going to be a process. So we are in the early stages. There has not been a formal proposal filed with the city as of when I wrote these slides. That could have changed because this is one of these things that is changing really rapidly. I think it's really helpful. So I've been very intentional about including quotes directly from our politicians because I think that matters. It helps kind of see where they're at. So this is what the mayor's spokesperson said. The developers have met with folks on the mayor's team, council members, community groups to inform all parties on this proposal. The mayor's office wants to learn more information and is doing its due diligence. That is fairly neutral. My personal read is that is, I can't really speculate based on that. Who here lives in the city of Albany? Okay, awesome. That's encouraging to see. We've got more to come. So right now, our mayor, I live in Troy, I'm a little 20 minutes up the road. The city faces a huge budget deficit at the moment. That is absolutely informing the mayor's decision. We need to make the case that a massive polluting facility that's going to cost all of us is not the way to get the city out of its $22 million budget deficit this year. Okay, so I get to spend things positively. I have not seen an issue get this amount of engagement since the early days of the fracking fight, frankly, where I was involved. I helped win our current prohibition on fracking in New York State. We need to continue to educate. Back 3 weeks ago, Trudy, Oliver, and I had a conversation. No one had heard of this facility. And now we turned away 10, 15 people, 20 people. People are fired up about this issue. That is a good thing. We need to keep talking to our friends and neighbors, educating, raising awareness of these things. And it's like one of these issues. There is the argument in favor of it is so a few tech billionaires can get richer off the backs of all of us. We need to keep saying that clearly, repeatedly. So right now, City of Albany residents, who knows who your council member is? Okay, you can Google it. The information is out there. At this very early stage, so essentially right now, from an organizing perspective, I've watched a bunch of different people become active. At some point, we're going to have a bigger, broader call. I think it's important, from my perspective, that we raise the voices of the South End to people who have been impacted by this issue and by other environmental issues in the past, who stand to live with this in their backyard. We are going to have to be very strategic meeting with the mayor. Right now, I would implore you to arrange a meeting with your council member. Give them a call, send them an email. City council people are on the ground and happy to serve us. We're going to do questions at the end, but what do you got?
Stop the Kenwood Tech Center in Albany Railway on June 20th at 12 noon.
That's the first I've heard of it.
Okay, I saw it today.
There you go. So it's a moment where a lot is happening really quickly. From an organizing perspective, ideally everyone would be talking to each other. We're working on making that happen. Right now there's a meeting. I know that there's a meeting happening Sunday. Things are happening very quickly with more information coming out very, very fast. The other piece of this, so what we have on this proposal is a 30-slide presentation from the company and very basic information from their filing with the state. It's called NICO, the Independent Systems Operators. I think I got that right. Who here can commit to reaching out to their Albany City Council member? I love it. Awesome. And I'll tell you what, the way that I would approach it, this is a sharing information. It's starting a relationship. Getting to know your local reps is an incredibly important piece of a political puzzle. This is, so the way that I approach my political analysis, it's moments in time. This is a moment in time where we can make a difference. And future us and our kids and our grandkids will thank us for fighting these projects. I just censored myself. That's good. We're doing all right. It's been a long day. I remember always, it is always easier to stop a project going in than to work to get some kind of accountability after the fact. So Musk has got this facility. Who's going to make him shut down these illegal gas-fired power plants that he has going? There's no accountability. We have a moment in time right here, right now, and come next session, I'm sure some of us are going to be working for a longer statewide ban. Who here knows their assembly and senate rep? Awesome. I love this. Nothing brings me more joy than speaking to a room of politically engaged people. I will say Senator Fahey, who represents a lot of Albany, some of Bethlehem, has been good on this issue generally. Assemblymember Gabriela Romero, it's her first term. She's been generally good on this issue. They both co-sponsored the 3-year moratorium bill. In general, and I'll say one other quick thing. The way that the statewide plays with the local, it's a generally positive step, the 1-year moratorium, and that doesn't mean that we should stop organizing locally. We need to double down on our local organizing. In that 1 year, these proposals and conversations can keep moving forward on the local level. So we need to educate our local reps and keep things moving forward. So that's what I've got. Thank you. I want to say really express tremendous appreciation to Bethlehem Neighbors for Peace. Trudy, pleasure to share the stage with Oliver. Now our game plan now, so we've been accumulating index cards. Trudy is going to go around and grab them to just keep things manageable. Many people often have the same question. We're going to have this stack of index cards. We're going to sort them out and go back and forth and make some decisions about who says what. So. This is your intermission. You can get up, do a little dance. We've got no paid entertainment here for you, but we'll give us 3 minutes or so.
Okay.
The sound of my voice clap twice. All right, you can hear the sound of my voice clap 3 times. If you can have it, just 4 times. Hey, we're in business now. Okay.
Just trying to make sure you're awake.
Yeah. This is getting near my bedtime. So we've got some really good, a lot of in-depth questions. I am so grateful for everyone. I mean, I'll tell you what, this is a sample size. The quality of questions to me are a sample of how good we did our jobs tonight. And I think we did a good job because these are really, really good, in-depth. So Skip and I are going to Oliver and I are going to take turns going back and forth and try to get into some of these. And I will start, if that's okay. How contaminated will the water be? We don't entirely know. It's not good. It's a quick and easy one. A lot of these water issues, we just have no darn information on. So we are trying to operate blindly, organizing against the behemoth industry without entirely having all the information.
There is, the latest thing, given the challenge of getting sufficient water, there is at least 2 data centers, large ones in the country right now, who are actually using recycled sewage water. No, thing. But, I wouldn't drink it, okay? But this has actually been going on for a long time. There's golf courses in Phoenix, Arizona, if you've been there. Pretty dry there. They don't get much rain. It's 105 degrees most of the time. Those golf courses are using recycled sewage water to water those golf courses. It can be done. Now, there's one plant that's going up. They're actually building a 20-mile pipeline in the state of Virginia to send this recycled sewer water to a mega data center because they can't get enough public water. That's how desperate they have become to build these things.
I did see on the news though that one lady they interviewed tap and the water is just dribbling because there's
Yeah.
no pressure.
Right, the pressures go on because they can't get anything out of the well, yeah. You know, you can find all this stuff out on the internet. I mean, it is out there. There are plenty of examples. So let's take, next question.
Yeah, do you want to pick one of yours? Sure. All right. What do you got? What's your favorite?
I want to do the, I just want to have a little humor, where's the space?
Oh, that was a good one, yeah. I don't think so. I get to hear our inner...
Well, I'll just paraphrase the question. Somebody had asked, what about building them out in space? What a cool idea. I mean, you've got all these satellites, thousands of satellites roaming around the planet right now, exchanging data, right? Starlink, among others, Amazon's building some stuff, sending its rocket ships up every other day almost. Well, you can put them out in space, but there's a problem. No. They're just going to blow air, right? There's a huge space, right? Isn't that wonderful? Well, there's a little problem. I'm a heat transfer guy. What is there in space? Nothing. There's nothing to take the heat away. There's no molecules out there that will help do the heat transfer. So you can throw that one away. Microsoft actually tried to put one in the ocean off the coast of either Scotland or Ireland a couple of years ago. They ran it for about a year as an experiment. And said, can't scale this thing up to be a gigawatt. It's done.
Okay, so I've got one on statewide politics. Does December deadline for when Hochul has to sign mean she will be lobbied for 6 months? Yeah, it does. It means we have 6 months to get to the governor and implore her to sign this bill. It is not a given that she signs it. I think that that's a very fair and reasonable analysis. We will absolutely be, and I'll tell you, starting tomorrow, I would say call the governor and say, hey, I really need you to sign this moratorium bill on data centers and do more to protect us.
I want to add to that. If she takes 6 months, if she could, she's got that prerogative, that's 6 months worth of data centers getting permits. Right? 6 months, so they can keep asking, getting people to sign off, asking for the power, asking for the water, and there is something in this bill that hopefully gets approved tonight. This bill is only for data centers that are 20 megawatts and bigger. So if you want to build 10 megawatt data center, go ahead. That's the other challenge. So pushing to get this thing done is important.
You want to choose one?
Oh, sure.
So if somebody built 10, they got to 5 or 10, they could increase it to 20.
Yeah. Well, that's the Kenwood thing, right? They're looking at saying, I only want to build 10, but they're showing me pictures and giving me information that says they want 180. So if they start with 10, they get in the door because they're under 20. Do you think that was just circumstance? No, that was savvy planning.
So one inconsistency that we've seen is jobs numbers. So there will always be a desire for jobs. I think no one here would really vehemently disagree that union jobs are a bad thing necessarily. And buried in Kenwood's proposal, so they gave the estimate for initial construction jobs and then said that it's going to be actually like under 100 people to run the thing. So it's, we're making 3,000 jobs in Albany, great, except it's actually 100. So there have been weird, and their presentation, so we're seeing a whole bunch of inconsistencies. Their presentation said 100 megawatts. They're filing with the states at 180. So this is the kind of cloud that we're operating in and trying to sort through. I'm gonna take one now. All right, we're doing okay. Okay, this is a really good one that I think is very loaded. How might the electric needs by data centers affect potential for nuclear power plants? So the nuclear issue is a big one. How much knowledge do you have on that? Okay, great. I can give the political context, and that's it. So myself and my organization are not in support of new nuclear plants for a variety of reasons, including they take forever to come on scale, and there has not been a nuclear facility that has been built on time or under budget. That's pretty much a given. And our governor is making a big push for more nuclear in New York. Related to data centers, unrelated to data centers, that we are in the midst of a massive push for nuclear in New York. The interesting piece of all of this, minimum 10 years to come online. She will be well out of office by that point. That's the reality. So how do the needs of data centers, how does it interplay? In ways that we don't fully understand, I think, is a fair answer. And the political moment is that our governor is pushing for nuclear. That is happening. That's what I got. Anything to add?
Yeah. All right. There's really mixed feelings about nuclear. I mean, you can go and talk about the nuclear waste. You can talk about the water. They use a lot of water. They really have to cool those reactors with water, and sometimes it leaks. Look at the Hanford site out in Washington, for example. The other part of this is, as I said, it's 10 years minimum between you find a spot, do all the design work, go through all the regulatory approvals, all the stuff that goes with it, and find somebody who's willing to give you $1 billion. Now, there's not been a nuclear power plant built in this country that did not have at least a 50% cost overrun. So if somebody wants to tell you it's $1 million, and given the inflation kind of things that we're seeing and all this stuff going on, I would say it's probably going to approach $2 million by the time you even get started. What can you build for $2 billion? A lot of solar, a lot of windmills, some more renewables, and maybe hydropower. And the other forgotten thing is energy efficiency. We in this country have forgotten about it. I spent 20 years working at RPI and energy efficiency, and I keep track of it since 1995. We're somewhere around 300 million kilowatt hours avoided. And a lot of money that went with that. It's possible to do this everywhere. I walk through buildings today and I go, why do we do this? Let's fix this one. Nobody wants to make those investments to lower their electric usage and their cost. But we can. There are alternatives to building these mega power facilities that take way too long and have way too many environmental issues with them.
Oh, we got it back and forth.
Yeah,
You got a system.
I got it. This is good. What are the chances of our people's power and water being cut to prioritize data centers?
Ooh, that's a good one.
It's a good one. Well, it's already happening with the water. Somebody can't get any water out of their tap down there in Georgia because there's no water pressure left or the aquifer is being drained. So yeah, they're having problems with that. On the power side of it, who gets to decide who gets the power? Who's been through a power outage here, a major one? There's been a couple here in the capital region. I went through one working at RPI where we had to shut down. We literally shut the campus down because we were going to lose all our air conditioning equipment. We were going to burn up low voltage problems. It would have cost us $500,000 to fix it all. So we shut down voluntarily. There were people that were asked to do it mandatory. That will come. They may in fact do that. There's stuff out there in the internet, in Europe, for example, the Internet of Things, where your refrigerator, your dishwasher is tied to the internet. And if there's a high demand period, guess what? It gets turned off. We may be headed in that direction. Or they may ask you to reduce your thermostat. The National Grid has a program where you can voluntarily get 25 or 50 bucks a year, but your air conditioning system's tied to this so that it's 3 in the afternoon. If they don't have enough power, yours gets turned down or turned off, your thermostat. So that's happened. There's another part to this one. And this one is really good. Yes, I just saw this the other day. The tech development and miniaturization of data centers. It's coming. NVIDIA just showed a proposal the other day with another partner company to put a data center at your house. It looks like an outdoor air conditioning unit with high-speed processors and its own air conditioner tied into your house. they'll pay you. Because it's cheaper for them to do that than to build these mega things so they can't get the power and the water. So that if they build 1,000 of these little things, it's like building one big one. But it's in your house and it's tied to your IP address. Is that okay with you? I don't know.
So I've got a couple things. So we had an outage in the middle of winter. I don't know if we fully appreciate just how important the grid is in our day-to-day lives. So you lose, I don't know about it, you all, if we lose power in the middle of winter, our heat's off. You know, and it was a night, you know, who here had an enjoyable winter? It was fun and pleasant. That seemed, yeah, it was cold, very, very cold. So, you know, one night, house will get down 50s, 2 nights. And so the term that we have been spoiled from having to deal with is called rolling brownouts. And that's something we're privileged enough to have not had have a lot of interaction with, which is a good thing. But okay, I've got a fun one here. This is a really good one. So basically, it's I had a little bit of trouble reading your writing, but I'm going to do my best. What is the argument in support of more AI? Why do some people, you know, what's the argument in support? The AI issue is a loaded one. Where I land personally is that it is incredibly overhyped. There are a lot of people way smarter than me that think that think we are in a massive bubble that's due to collapse because these companies are being way overvalued. As far as using it in my personal life, what I have seen is that it's useless. Has anyone, just 1 second, ma'am, you agree? Okay. I have watched it put out confidently incorrect information and then make up sources to justify it. That can happen. It's a moment where it's this massive thing that we can't even fully understand the consequences of. There's an argument to be made that these little boxes in our pocket that are designed to take our attention are a really bad idea and are fundamentally changing us as human beings as we scroll endlessly. And I'm just as guilty as anyone, you know. The argument in support of AI is that it's going to save companies costs. A few people are going to get richer. I don't know if this answer is fully satisfying, and I think it can be helpful to try to construct what the other side is saying. Part of the reason that this data center issue is so uniting is that the people who are benefiting are tech billionaires. Full stop. No one in this room, I do not care where you are in the income level, you are not benefiting. No one is besides the 5 or 10 wealthiest people on the planet who seem hell-bent on destroying us all. So...
Yeah, I can add I'll add a little to it. I'm somebody who's done a lot of research, and there's clearly some places, the medical field, for example, the pharmaceutical field, that may in fact find things that can help us as human beings. And that would be a good thing. And AI may help them do that. I'm not sure what the ramifications will be long term on that, but there are some places where it makes sense. But not to the level and the expansiveness that we're looking at. There's no need, when you think, I showed you that slide about those major countries, and you think about, there's these data centers all over the world. They're doing the same thing that we do. And the one other thing that has become interesting is, and I'll throw this out there, as a BNP kind of a thing, I guess, there's this war that's going on over there in Iran. One of the things that they did is they blew up a data center. Let's just blow them up, So what happened? All that data's gone. Well, no, it's actually, they've backed up to some other data center in some other part of the world, but the fact is, it's becoming weaponized as well. I got another one here. I think, let me do this. We talked about AI. Somebody said, there's not an actual proposal for a data center for the Kenwood site. Incorrect. There is. I have seen the 36-page proposal. I've read it. I've looked at the inconsistencies in it. They're there. They talk about renewable energy. They're not using any renewable energy. They're going to buy from gas turbines on the next page. They talk about how it's going to be sustainable. I don't know what their definition of sustainability is, but it's not mine. It's out there. Let's see, the county hired, no, it wasn't done by the county. It was done by this developer. It was local. They're working with a data developer in New York City, and they've put together a joint proposal that is in conversation with the City of Albany and the planning department. They have been having conversations. They're aware of it.
I just have one more small thing. The only nuance there is that the planning board has not received a formal proposal, but there absolutely is a proposal in the world. I have two more. How many more do you have? Okay, a couple short ones. All right. So this is a good one, and I think that this gets to the core of it. Why don't the costs get paid by the data center companies? Why are they being passed on to us? Because who's going to make them? At the end of the day, who is going to make them? Who is going to say, you, Elon Musk, need to be a responsible human being, pardon my eye rolling, and like, look, both of us feel a certain way. You're getting one side of the issue, what we believe at our hearts and knowledge to be the morally, ethically correct side of the issue. But at the end of the day, has any company ever done anything without being told to? At the end of the day, is corporate responsibility real, genuine? There's an argument, there are arguments to be made. I'm open to nuance on that. But really, what's going to happen is it's going to be the government will have to study this more. We're counting on the state to do the right thing. And at the end of the day, it's all on us to fight this thing.
The question here was, why isn't all the heat and the steam or whatever in a pipe somewhere stored for use? Wow, what a concept. Well, let's say you're in Texas. Where do you put all that heat? Is there any day in Texas, there might be 2 days a year, where it's cold enough that you really need some of that heat? Even here at the Kenwood Data Center, they have suggested in their proposal that they would take all this surplus heat and use it for this huge 5-story, 276 apartment complex building that they're going to put on site in the proposal. I don't think it's real, but they made it look good. They would use the heat that's rejected from the data center to heat those buildings. Well, okay, it's a nice idea. That's good for about 4 months out of the year. What do you do the other 8 months? Evaporative cooling towers, when it's the hottest time of the year anyway. So that's when you use the most water.
So I've got a 3-in-1 here, and it's a doozy. So it's 3 parts. Has it been approved? What approvals are needed? How can we stop the project? What's the importance of getting to know the planning board? So as of right now, there is not a proposal that's been submitted to the Albany Planning Board. That has not happened yet. We imagine and speculate that it's going to be happening soon. They've had initial conversations. We know that based on the quotes that are out there. The Albany Planning Board, I would argue, so in the organizing world, you have what are called your targets. What that means are your decision makers. The executive branch carries a lot of weight. That's our mayor, that's our governor, with the legislature. So the example is, we hopefully by the time we get home that the one-year moratorium could have been passed by 50 senators, 142 assembly people, I could be wrong. Body of roughly 190 said, hey, who represent the state in a broad geographic way could say, hey, this is a good thing, we want it. and the executive could not sign it. New York in particular is a state where the executive carries a ton of power. Mayor Appleers can lean on her planning board one way or another. It's a tactically good idea to make the case to the city council because they will have to deal with zoning. There will be, this whole thing will take all three branches of the Albany government. I'd imagine there are going to be lawsuits filed back and forth too as time goes on. The truth is the planning board will likely do what the mayor says. I believe that she appoints those members. So the planning board members are not truly the decision makers, though they are on paper. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, I communicated that good. And the last one, this is where I get to get up on my pedestal. How do we stop the Kenwood Data Center? I love it. So I've been organizing in the world about 15 years. What good organizing looks like is building meaningful human connections. You all could be at home watching television. You all could be at home sleeping. It's 8:20. I'm getting ready.
Yeah, going for a wonderful walk.
And the other thing that's inspiring to me is being, I know a handful of folks, being in a room full of people who I've never met. This is what a movement looks like, is all of us building meaningful human relationships with each other, getting to know each other as human beings, coming together around this issue to work to stop it, building a movement that's inclusive, respectful, kind, caring, that can exhibit the best of who we are as human beings. And that's what I really believe in at my core. Powerful organizing that's well done, thoughtful, kind, can change the world. And I believe that.
Oh, good work. As an example of that, this huge data center proposal that is being planned out in the state of Utah, which is would be the largest in the country, the largest in the world. They had this little independent commission of 3 or 4 people who went into a room and said, yeah, let's do this. No one got to provide any input to it. When that information became public, 600 people showed up at a meeting to talk about this and express their displeasure. Within a week, the governor for the state of Utah said, maybe we should rethink how big this thing should be. Maybe it should only be like 25% of what this billionaire wants to build. Because we don't have enough water. I don't know where they ever came up with this. So people can make a difference when you show up. Yeah, we got,
Sorry. So this is a moment. The fact that, again, there is so much. This is the issue right now. The fact that people are disengaged means a heck of a lot. It really does. There were 50 people that showed up to a planning board meeting where this wasn't on the agenda on Tuesday. Go ahead, Maura.
Which is great news. I am finding, like I was telling Margaret, like people are reaching out to me on Facebook.
Yes.
What should we do? So my question is, how are we going to create an umbrella organization that gathers all of this disparate opposition?
How do we create an umbrella organization that gathers all of this disparate energy? That's why...
In 5 words or less.
In 5 words or less. I mean, look, that's what skillful organizing looks like. That's what, you create what, I can share my personal vision. It's going to be someone, and I kind of don't want it to be me because I got a lot of things going on. Someone's going to come up with open calls that are regular, that are very focused, that are very direct, and it's going to look like a broad strategy of building a movement together with tactics of showing up at key places at key moments. How's that for an answer? Pretty good, all right. Go ahead.
I just want to share one fraction of a tactic could be, people could join us here in Delmar on Tuesdays at the Four Corners at 5 p.m. You don't have to be from Delmar. Come, park on the street, park in a parking lot, park at the Reformed Church. It's okay. And join us for an hour.
All right, awesome, thank you, yeah. Okay, so I wanna let Oliver take a couple more. We get in, yeah, I'd like to, because there were a couple more no cards.
Yeah, there were a couple.
And we can, my vote is that we give ourselves plenty of time to wrap up and have conversations out of the building, so we stay on the good side of the Bethlehem Public Library, who so graciously hosted us.
Thank you. Oh, let's see. Oh, maybe we did do them all. Yeah, we did. I just got word that the legislation has passed. That's a good thing. Now, when I got started on this, you know, this latest thing with the Kenwood thing, as opposed to what I've been working with all over the country, I went out and bought 30 no more data center signs. And they're Trudy left, Trudy?
There's two back on the table. No money can change hands.
No, yeah, I'm giving them away. I mean, they were really low cost item, and it's my, we don't have them here. We can bring any more, right? I got a couple more in the car, so if you want to go out in the parking lot when we're all done, we'll give you one. All right?
We're not selling them.
Not selling them, they're freebies, they're given away.
And also, we want to make a couple of announcements.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's one guy who really has a pressing question. Can you ask that?
No, he was the one that said that it passed. That was
Oh, okay. Yeah, the bill passed.
Awesome,
This
thank you.
guy, this
Oh,
guy.
somebody else.
My
Yeah,
name.
this guy wanted to ask a question. And I guess he didn't hear it. Go ahead.
My question is that I'm confused how we are continuing to make maximum use of data storage, cloud storage, internet usage, web services, and now artificial intelligence services. How are we going to have that at the same time that we're going to oppose all data centers? I'm confused about that. It seems
Yeah.
to me if we're going to succeed,
it was a good
we
question.
have to put them together.
I wasn't sure we'd have time, but we do. The answer is, if you look at all the data centers, large, medium, and small, that already exist, not only in this country, but all over the planet, because we are all interconnected with the internet. You may get an email, you may get a call center that comes voice over IP from somebody in India. The data centers are there. This information that you have isn't necessarily here in Albany. It can be stored in Arizona, it can be stored in New Delhi, it can be stored in Iran. It's all over the world. We are so interconnected. And the amount of storage that we currently have for your wonderful family, grandchildren photos, for your emails, for all the research that I have been doing on energy for the past 40 years is stored. Some of it in the cloud, some of it I choose to not put in the cloud. It's probably more than enough right now. We might need to replace some of it because it's getting old. That's okay. But this AI thing that we're headed to, where they're not just storing data, but this computational stuff that then goes out there and does this billion calculations per second on financial information, on technical information, on geotechnical, on political, on war games, etc. That's the AI world that we're starting to jump into and not some of us wholeheartedly embrace.
So we don't have to think, we don't need that.
I got this.
We don't-
How much can we
don't
hold?
need this.
How much can we have an incredible, human beings have an incredible capacity to retain information. And, you know, it's out there. And somebody Somebody said, I asked this question, so I said, well, let me look it up for you. And I said, I know the answer, all right? I already know the answer to most of it, 90% of it, in terms of my field. It's out there. And, you know, some of it, you know, I still get a couple of engineering journals because I actually like to have something tangible where I can read it and hold on to it, as opposed to having to go look on the internet to find it. It's there. We may need a little more, but we don't need 3 gigawatts popping up in every state of the country to store information at this point.
I just wanted to give a quick shout out to Bethlehem Neighbors for Peace. Give a clap for trees. It's been a pleasure sharing the stage with you. I get to hand things off to announcements. Thank you. Real pleasure tonight. And I'll be hanging out a little bit to chat as well.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you very much. We had a couple of announcements to make. Joe